a lot of that like feminism and what people talk about is we push, we grind, we go and do, and it really puts us into our masculine.
Yeah.
And so essentially women are becoming more like men. If you look into Andrew Tate and like
the lingo
and
that
these
they
like
use.
proud boys, they basically prey on boys who've been heartbroken, boys who have no game or can't pick up women, and they teach them these tactics on how to manipulate. And I'm embarrassed to say that it worked on me.
I don't think Andrew Tate is a man. I think he's a broken, hurt boy who unfortunately influences a lot of broken, hurt boys, because no man of honor, no man of God will ever say anything like that.
I think this was probably 6 months in, like, you've never actually asked me anything about me or my daughter. And he's like, well, I don't really give a F about your daughter. That was one. He lived up 78 flight of stairs. Guess who would carry the boxes and the groceries and the heavy stuff?
No.
But that's dating as a single mom.
Welcome everybody to this week's Catamania episode. I don't know if you heard a scooter or the noise that we just heard here, but I have to warn you all that we're recording this on a gorgeous patio balcony that my friend Shanna has. And we were trying to make it look super nice with the background, but it was too hard to make it work with the equipment. So behind you, like you watching right now, is this gorgeous looking, like 4 hills covered in jungle. But we're gonna leave that up for your imagination. I have to warn you about the sounds. There could be an occasional rooster, car, music, hopefully no music. We're in Mexico. And some of you may remember Shanna from a couple of episodes ago. Shanna is a good friend of mine. We met in Mexico. As many of you know, we try to spend our winters here in Mexico. And we had a really great conversation on the podcast last time. And then like a week later, Shanna came over for a glass of wine and we got straight into her dating and some funny stories that she's experienced for the past couple of years or a few years. I was like, Shanna, do you mind coming back on my podcast and just like diving into it, because I feel like it would be really entertaining and really cool for people to hear, because some of her stories were wild. Anyways, without further ado, welcome back, Miss Shanna.
Thank you.
And for those of you listening, please remember to subscribe, comment, share with a friend, whatever you need to do to help this podcast grow. It means more than you know. There's another scooter. Alrighty, we'll see how many of those we'll have this episode. Hopefully not too many. Hopefully it's not gonna like ring in your ears, but hi, Shanna.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I love how easygoing you are in terms of just coming on my podcast. I'm like, hey, do you want to like come on my podcast and share the stories that you've shared?
Yeah.
So what's it like? The dating world. I haven't been in it for 10 years. You've told me some wild stories.
I have.
You know that I have an Eastern European background, and very often when I hear stories of men doing certain things in like North America, I'm like, no way, that's not possible.
Yeah, so I think the context is important that I'm a single mom.
Yeah. So
dating as a single mom is very much layered, probably more than just dating as a single solo human.
Right.
Because there's a lot of other things to consider. It's been an interesting journey. Number one, as a single mom, it's really difficult to find the time to date.
Right.
Because most nights I'm here cooking, cleaning, putting my daughter to bed.
There's another scooter. Awesome.
I'm not like going out and meeting people.
Yeah.
So in the past few years, I've been divorced, separated for almost 3.5 years now. And I took actually the first 10 months, almost 12, almost a full year after my divorce, just for me.
Yeah.
So I took time. I think a lot of people rush into relationships after they break up to fill that void, right? So I allowed myself to sit in the void and sit in the discomfort of being alone for the first time in my life. And I remember the first week after Daniel moved out, and I had my daughter, so she was in the house sleeping, but I like it was really uncomfortable. And I realized in that moment I had never been alone before, because I was a kid growing up in my mom's household. Then I lived with roommates in college, met my ex. We were together 16 years. And so here I am, this adult woman. And I'm like, whoa, I've never been alone before. This is really uncomfortable. And the first week to 2 weeks, it was hard. And I processed a lot of emotions, and like this being the new normal and acknowledging that, accepting that. And I think it was like week 3, I was like, this is amazing.
You loved it, hey? Oh, wow.
It's like, I don't have to listen to anyone. I can do my own thing. And then it's like, okay, what do I want to do with this time for me? So that was that. And then as far as dating, I've had, I guess, 2 experiences since separating. One was very short. It was actually down here in Mexico where we live. I was coming to check out the town and the school for my daughter before we moved. And my mom actually introduced me to this person. And it was like that. Do you want like all the details? It's so embarrassing.
As you can give. So I'm going to grab this glass of water. Oh my God, these scooters just keep on. This is like a very homey situation. I was like, we have to record in a very homey setting.
Absolutely.
And homey in Mexico means that, in some parts of Mexico, means that there's going to be a lot of scooters. And like I said, even roosters sometimes, because there's like fighter roosters. I guess they're fighter roosters, right? Is that why they're roosting all day long?
They're roosting
all night long. All day and all night. Before we move on to that, would you define yourself more of like, do you have a traditional approach to relationships? In terms of your values and how you...
For partnership, yes.
Yeah.
I think for dating, it's a little like, okay, what I've realized is, especially on the dating apps, who I want to have a sexual experience with is very different than who I want to be a partner and father figure for my dad. So that's something new that I've noticed. So like if I'm looking at just like physical attraction, sexual connection, often now my lens is like, would they be a good role model for my daughter? And often the answer is like, probably not. I do believe that all of it can coexist. Like, I think it's important to be sexually attracted to your partner and find a good kind man that will be a good role model. But what I've noticed in this dating or whatever, I don't even know if you want to call it dating, the experiences I had, but the experiences I had was very much like physical connection. And I allowed myself to have that. You know, I was in a relationship for 16 years.
Yeah.
From age 22. So this was like I've been in one adult relationship. And so the 2 connections that I had was like, it was.
There's a bell. Someone literally just rang a bell. I don't know if y'all heard it. This is amazing. Hopefully it won't be too loud. We'll try to figure something out. Yeah. So you had like all of that together before?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I did. So I would say I'm more traditional, actually. I think I've explored other things.
Split bills? I don't think I've ever asked. No, I have asked a woman on my podcast.
I have split bills.
Yeah.
I have split bills. I think my.
We need to re-educate Shanna.
Yes.
Shanna needs to be re-educated.
In my process of healing from past relationship, becoming a single woman and becoming like the queen, so the queen energy, and more of the mother archetype versus like the maiden young girl.
Yeah.
Like I'm leaning a lot more toward traditional values.
Yeah.
Where it's like the man is the provider. However, I still am an empowered woman and I still want to create things in the world. But yes, I think moving forward, I'm looking to receive. Like I want a man to lead. I want a man to protect, a man to take care of me. So on a date at this point, I do want someone that would pay for the bill. Because when they didn't work out very well.
Red flags. Because I always say it's so much more than just about a bill. And I don't know why people freak out so much. But it's like, first of all, it's just a basic gesture of chivalry to me. And then the other thing is, it's a sign that he will take care of things if things need to be taken care of. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That's all it is. It has nothing to do. Like, I absolutely laugh at when people are like, oh, you're just looking for a free meal, to all the women who, there's another really loud vehicle. when people are like, oh, like women are just looking for free meals or whatever, or, you know, they call women gold diggers who say that they want their bill covered. And it's like, you know, that whole meme, like gold diggers go for like yachts and planes. They don't go for, you know, a chicken pasta restaurant. Like that's not what this is about. You know what I mean? So, and you would say that it changed for you later in life? Like it started to become more of a thing? Because in my 20s, I was a lot more like,
well, I was like full like feminist, like women
You were
empowerment.
feminist?
Well, like women's empowerment. I have to
Yeah.
take care of myself. That's what my mom was. Like my mom was pretty much single a lot of her life, and she was that like, you know, women's rights, women have
Yeah.
the right to vote, that whole thing. And so I adopted
Your mom
that.
was the true feminist,
She
though,
was.
because her
Correct.
generation was actual,
Correct.
like, we have to thank them for, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
For many things. Nowadays, it's a whole other question, but yeah.
And I think now becoming a mom has given me a really different perspective, and I'll explain it.
Yeah.
Because admittedly, prior to becoming a mom, I had a little bit of judgment towards people who just chose to be moms and housewives.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Prior.
Right.
Admittedly.
And then you became a mom. Yeah.
Then I became a mom, and 4 months postpartum, I was working. I went back to work, as a lot of Western women do. And I essentially was just working to pay the bills and pay the nanny.
Right.
So it's like if I just hadn't had the nanny and was present with my daughter during that early time, it would equal out. It's almost like the money I made went to pay for someone else to take care of my child.
Right.
And that's probably the first time I've said that without crying, because I believe that we make the decisions that are best for us in the moment. And her nanny is like family now and had such a big influence on who Soleil's become. And you've met my daughter.
Oh,
so I made the right decision at the time that I needed to make. However, moving forward, I think that one of the most important roles that we have as mothers is to be a mother and to be available and present for your children. And so if I'm going back, so I think a lot of that like feminism and what people talk about is we push, we grind, we go and do, and it really puts us into our masculine.
Yeah.
And so essentially women are becoming more like men.
Yeah.
And so when we're talking about those traditional roles, and I look at it as like the masculine, feminine polarity and dynamic. Like I love cooking a meal for my people or for a partner.
Yeah.
Like I love that. And I love taking care of him and nurturing. Like I'm a woman, I'm feminine, I'm a mother, like in our hearts, even if you don't have children, like as women, we're feminine and nurturing.
Yeah.
And so in actually one of my experiences, I was able to really settle into that dynamic with a boy. But I was able to practice what that would feel like to take care of.
Yeah.
And I really liked those.
You really liked it, yeah. Do you think that with the right man, I mean, that's my view, but because I'm very go, I feel like naturally I lean more into the masculine traits, to be honest with you. But my belief is that if the man is giving you that safety space, so to speak, of like, don't worry, I'll take care of it, then you kind of naturally soften into your feminine with him, you know? When I'm outside my house, I'm usually very much like go, you know? I still try to maintain a balance, and it's always a balance. You're always going to have some masculine, some feminine traits, but you kind of learn to love those things. And I do think it comes with maybe some experience or some age, because I started to reach that closer to my 30s. In my early to mid 20s, I was very much like, I want to climb the corporate ladder, you know, all those kinds of things. So it's interesting that for you, it also kind of shifted with time, and especially after becoming a mother. Yeah. I hear so many shifts happening with women after they become mothers.
So much.
Some of my friends became like super, like huge anti-abortion advocates after giving birth. And I'm like, you know what? Like I'm not judging any of the views, but I could see it, especially if you had like troubles getting pregnant. So your whole worldview would change after that. But it's interesting, you know, after your whole life changes, right?
Everything changes, and your perspective on everything changes, because you now have to take care of someone outside of you. You're responsible for this little life. So like for me, like passive people pleasing Shanna, that changed as well. Yeah. Because now it's like, I'm a mama bear. I have to take care of this child and protect it. So I have to set boundaries. It's interesting, like especially with family and like the people that are going to be closest to her. if I don't learn to use my voice and set boundaries, then like the toxic behavior of the past will just be passed down onto her.
Yeah.
So it was like that gave me the motivation. Like ideally, you love yourself enough that you find
Right.
the motivation to make the changes. But for me, it took becoming a mother and to care about something even beyond myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know that there's a huge, I wouldn't say it's huge, but there's a movement online that is, you know, that goes to extremes, but there's a conservative movement specifically online that advocates like against divorce. And usually it's tied with also this movement of like everybody needs to have kids. Like everybody just get married, have kids, and like don't get divorced. Would love to dive into the subject with you because obviously divorce can be a healthy thing.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be the first button that people press, probably, depending on what issues they're facing, right?
Well, on both of those counts, I don't actually think that everyone has to have children. I would want everyone to want children because I think for me, it's the most magical journey I've ever been on. But I don't think everyone should have children. If you want, everyone who wants to have a child should have a child.
Yeah.
And as far as you should never get divorced, I completely disagree with that.
Same.
I think that long-term relationships take a lot of work, and it's possible a lot of people give up because they don't have the tools.
Yeah.
But I believe that, especially if you have children, not even just if you have children, just for yourself, that if it's, I mean, imagine if it's like an unhealthy, toxic environment, or there's a physical abuse, verbal abuse, of course, no, don't stay. But even if you're unhappy and you're not in love anymore, or you're so disconnected, your children are witnessing and defining love by your example.
And standards, that's going to be their standard, right?
Period.
Yeah.
So that's who your daughter is going to marry.
Yeah.
And that's who your sons are going to look for as a wife. And it's just, that's the way that it is.
Yeah.
So if you stay, like a lot of people stay for the kids, I think that is actually doing a disservice to children. If you're staying in a unhappy, not physical, like, you know, people who don't have intimacy and love that children can witness and grow up in, I think it's detrimental to kids long term.
I had a conversation on my podcast a couple of years ago with a lady who is an attorney, a family lawyer in the UK, and she specifically deals with divorce from toxic personalities. So whether that there's a personality disorder or there's very strong toxic traits. And she told me something that I thought was very interesting, because we all know people who, you know, we look at them, whether they're our parents' friends, for some of us it's our parents. Yeah. We're like, why are you together with this person, right? And she told me something. She said, kids don't need parents, they need happy parents.
Yes.
I was like, oh, wow, that's actually such an interesting point of view. And I'm not a psychologist. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know exactly how divorce affects children, how having, you know, a toxic marriage affects children. But that really struck me. I was like, wow, that's a very interesting point.
Yeah, I agree with that. And because I always like to play devil's advocate on both sides.
Yeah.
Also, if you are choosing to separate or divorce, the way in which you do that will impact your kids.
Of course.
So what I've seen is a lot of people, again, don't have the tools to do it with love and compassion, because I think one of the most difficult human emotions to feel and process is rejection. So when you are divorcing, it is under the root is rejection in a way, regardless of who chose it. And I think, again, when people feel rejected or they feel hurt, they don't show up as their best self. And so a lot of people, again, don't have the tools. So they cheat, they do something to disrupt it in a way that they can just be angry, and they think that's easier. But again, the effect that has on the children, I've seen, you know, ex-husbands talk horribly about their mothers in front of the children, or weaponize the children against each other. That is the most toxic thing that you can do for children.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you are choosing as adults to get a divorce, go to therapy, have mediation, and do it in a way that it is done in a container of love with your children first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do it like adults, not like children fighting.
Exactly.
It took me by surprise to realize just a few years ago, actually, that we're all just big kids, you know, like we're adults, but like a lot of the things that we do and a lot of the ways that we handle things can be quite childish sometimes,
Yeah.
you know? So
I feel like we talked about that last
Yeah,
time. It's
we
like
did.
we're big kids in aging skin having temper tantrums because we never learned how to process our emotions, how to deal with conflict. You know, we're learning like history. The stuff that we learn in school isn't necessarily applicable to being human and going through this human experience, which isn't easy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
We have to go to Western dating situations. I'm telling you guys, the conversations that I was having with Shona the other day, splitting the bill is like the least of my concern at this point.
Yeah.
What's like the worst dating experience you've had? I just have a feeling it'd be so entertaining for my audience to listen to this, especially that I have so many Eastern European women. Aren't you like 5% Russian? There's like, there you go.
My great grandparents are from Russia.
We need to let that out of you. That 5% needs to become the dominant one.
Okay, so there's been 2 experiences that I've had, again, as a single mom, really hard to date. But there's been 2 experiences that I've had with men in the 3.5 years that my husband and I, my ex and I separated. And, you know, I didn't make the best choices, but I had very interesting experiences.
I love the way you put that.
Okay, so the first one was like I was coming down to Mexico to check out the school for my daughter, starting to plan to move here. And my mom was like, you have to go to this sound healing class. This man is amazing. And I go to this sound healing class. And it was actually quite profound, like the session itself, because he used instruments, like played the saxophone and the piano and all these other instruments. It wasn't just crystal bowls. So it was really powerful for me. And it was at a point where it was the end of the year. I was releasing, you know, past relationships, my divorce, like all the things, and stepping into this new version of myself.
A good sound healing is really good.
It was
if you haven't tried it, highly recommend whoever's listening to this. It's really good. Yeah.
And so with the music and the changing, like I went really deep, and I was able to like process and see all the things I was like, the people I was letting go.
Were you seeing visuals? The first time I did it, I saw visuals.
Yeah. It was the first time in a sound healing. It was almost like a movie though. Like I was seeing things happening, seeing faces of people. Like it was really interesting. Almost like a psychedelic experience a little bit. So like in that moment when I was like ready to like fully release my ex, like the emotion started to build, and just as like my tears were about to like flood, this man comes and just like holds my head, and I had this emotional release, and it was just such a profound experience. And so like what can happen in these spiritual communities, you feel like, oh, I just had a connection with this person, but it was really like my own experience. But it's almost like we put that on the teacher or the instructor. And there is a lot of I would say there's a lot of stuff going on out of integrity in these communities where men can take advantage of that dynamic in that space. I'm not saying that's what happened, but I definitely felt a connection. We hung out, and then we ended up, I was leaving the next day to go back to California. So we ended up, the relationship was primarily just on the phone. So we would talk for hours and hours and hours. And initially I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like a man that's can like talk about like the spiritual things or deeper things. Like I've never met a man that can talk about these things. So initially I was like, wow, this is really attractive. And then there was just like a point where I realized he was just talking about himself. And like never really asked me questions about me, my daughter, what I was going through.
Do you have a red piece of cloth? We should like.
So then.
Seriously though, there's a red lamp.
Yeah, red light.
Red light.
So this man, after 3 months of just talking on the phone, I invite him, which was like, what? I invited him to come to my daughter's birthday and meet my whole family because we had this like deep connection. But I didn't know, like, 3 months of talking.
The flag wasn't red enough at that point. You know what I mean? Like we needed to color it a little bit more red. So there's a red lamp somewhere you have, I know, that shines a lot of light.
So he comes to my home. Oh,
I need to
brace yourself.
I need to.
He came to stay in my home, and he didn't have any money. Like when I say no money, I mean like nothing at all whatsoever. Not only did he not have money, he had the expectation that I was just going to pay for everything. To the point where, no, hang on.
Do you have a bucket? I'm sorry.
I remember we were like getting food for the party, for my daughter's birthday party. We're at the grocery store with my mom. And my mom and I were kind of like putting the groceries on the, the conveyor belt. And this man just comes up and just puts things on our belt, expecting my mom to pay for them. And we literally, we like looked at each other like, are you serious? Because I didn't realize yet the extent of like literally no money, not even $1. So that was red flag number 20. And then
1,000?
Then we're getting ready for my daughter's birthday. And first of all, just don't date men that wear parachute pants. We call them just don't do it. And man buns. Like, I'm done. No more parachute pants and man buns. Because the next story, parachute pants and man buns also. Anyway, so then we're getting ready for my...
This is going to be the title of this episode.
Don't date
men in parachute pants, man buns.
So then we're getting ready for my daughter's birthday, and a friend was there with her daughter and my mom, and we're like running around doing all the things. And he's just like sitting out in the yard.
Helping you prepare for the birthday.
While we're like clearly running around.
Yeah. And he's meditating in parachute.
Like I remember I was like carrying the garbage out and doing all these things. And again, talking about gender roles and those dynamics. Yeah, no, didn't help, didn't lift a finger, and could clearly see that we were all struggling and running around. Red flag for me, number 2. Then after the birthday party.
Number 2. That was number 2.
Oh, sorry, like
not
29. Where after the birthday party, we're having dinner with my ex and his partner. And this man, well, again, I should call them a boy. This boy proceeds to ask my ex, he said this. He was like, so Daniel, I'm wondering when you're planning to take the child.
Your daughter.
My daughter. Because it's really interrupting my sleep here.
What? He actually said that.
And then.
And you still didn't lose your shit.
No, I was so embarrassed. And I was so embarrassed. I mean, not only did he wear parachute pants to the jump, like the trampoline birthday party, like
he was jumping on a trampoline with the parachute pants?
With like the whole matching parachute pants outfit. Then he proceeds to ask that. Then on the way home, I'm driving children home. This is so embarrassing. Do you know what rapé is? Or hape, some people call it? So it's basically tobacco that you like snort through your nose to okay. I don't know, it's some experience. He proceeds to do that in the car while I have children in the back. And that's as far as I'm going to go with this story. There's a lot more flags, but basically after that, I was like, we are not compatible. And here's why. I was so embarrassed in front of my friends because he was like meeting all my friends. And I'm like, this man's amazing. And he's so like, and then like, I mean, it was so obvious immediately. Like, no.
There's a giant set of hills in front of us right now. Like there's hills covered in the jungle, as I mentioned in the beginning of this episode. And I feel like if you covered the whole area in a giant red flag, that wouldn't be enough to express just how red flaggy of a situation that was. Shanna, in my part of the world, that man would have gotten what we call pisuli. I've talked about that. For sure. Like, can you imagine? Ladies, from my part of the world, please share your views on this. Obviously, he was living in the western side of hemisphere.
He's from Amsterdam.
Okay. There's a lot of great men in the West. I'm not saying that. This is something that you don't hear very often.
Yeah. And there's probably a lot of great men that wear parachute pants. I'm just saying for me personally, it's like a
disclaimer.
Filter.
No. What would you do if you ever found a pair of parachute pants in like buried somewhere in the closet? Would you have a conversation right away? I feel like that's a good enough red flag.
No,
I will say, yeah, yeah. It's just not, no,
not for me. They are for someone else out there. But my second person, the second boy, was actually a boy. He was 11 years younger than me.
Did he ask you at all anything about you? That's a really common thing men do, don't they? I mean, again, I haven't been in the dating world for over 10 years, but I hear my girlfriends talk about that all the time, that there's a common thing, and I've had a little bit of experience in that regard, obviously before I met my husband, but men that go on dates, they never ask you anything. Like, why do y'all do it? They will just talk about themselves.
Yeah. So what I learned about this one, in the very first encounter, we went to the beach for a sunset and we talked about a lot of things again. So I was like, oh, this person's into like biohacking, health and wellness. He's more in that realm of like health. And like, I'm realizing I'm more into like the health and wellness versus spirituality.
Right.
Bucket. But there is spirituality woven. I mean, I'm a yoga teacher, meditation, but there's like we live here grounded on the earth, our feet are on the ground spirituality. And then there's like, we float in the clouds.
Yeah.
For me, again,
we're meditating.
I like masculine energy.
Party. Yeah.
I need like feet on the ground.
Yeah.
So the initial date, or like, it wasn't a date, but the initial hanging out, we went to the beach and we did talk about a lot of things, but what I recognize is I share a lot about myself. So that's not someone asking questions. That's me just
sharing,
offering information because that's who I am.
Yeah.
And I'm very self-aware and I'm an open book. So like, again, I left it feeling like, oh, we have this amazing connection. You guys, your Eastern ladies are going to kill me for this one. 10 months I spent. Not one question about me, about my work, about my family, about anything. And we were working together and seeing each other intimately. Not one question. When I brought it up, you guys, again, these red flags are like, oh, I'm getting burnt at this point. When I brought it up, when he like, I think this boy, because we basically met and created a container knowing that like, we're not going to be partners in the future. Let's like explore and enjoy and have fun with each other, which I'd never done anything like that in my life. And let me tell you, after 16 years in one relationship, I needed that. I needed that awakening. I needed to reconnect to my sexuality, to my body. And like, there was a lot that I gained through the experience. Otherwise, of course, I wouldn't be there. But when you're looking at the red flags along the way, when I brought it up to him, because he thought that I would want to be with him, of course, because narcissists, I'm going to use that word not lightly, the world revolves around them, and they think,
you don't use that word left, right, and center. So if
no,
you
I've
say
never, and I've never experienced it until this.
Right.
So I'm not one to be like, oh, they're a narcissist. Just no, like. So when I brought it up, because he again thought that he was a potential partner for me, even though I like, no, you're a boy that I'm sleeping with for fun. And then, so when I told him that, did you notice, I think this was probably 6 months in, like, you've never actually asked me anything about me or my daughter or like my life. And he's like, well, I don't really give a F about your daughter, actually. So like, ask me why I stayed longer. Yeah, that was one. He lived up 78 flight of stairs. Guess who would carry the boxes and the groceries and the heavy stuff?
No.
This man just walked up with his little fanny pack on, sometimes parachute pants, and his dog walking up.
I was going to ask about the parachute pants. I was like, surely after that, at least you didn't.
Never offered to help carry
the
groceries. I would buy his groceries and deliver them. Like, this is me practicing, like doing my feminine and taking care of someone. Almost never said thank you, never paid me back. Like, at this point, I would say he probably owes me $1,000 of groceries, but I was doing it. And this is work that I've looked at. And then there was another big red flag. I know you and I kind of talked a little bit about this, like the Proud Boys red pill community. So I wasn't present for this conversation, but friends of mine, I was gone on a trip, and they all got into this conversation, and they were talking about, what was it? Sex, love, money, and power, and death. There were like certain categories. And what came out through that conversation, so I don't know if you've heard of Andrew Tate.
Unfortunately,
So I didn't,
have
because I didn't know these things.
right.
Because I've never.
You were blessed enough to never. I didn't know enough about him until not that long ago. But yeah.
So this boy like hails Andrew Tate, Elon Musk. Like
I think this whole town can be covered in red paint at this point. In that case. Yeah.
So yeah, he basically shared some views that were like very drastically not aligned with mine. And then we were also working together, and in the business side of it as well, like that narcissism just showed up. Like I'm 15 years older, and I've been in this wellness industry so much longer. Like this person like had just entered it and had a great idea. The idea was amazing to do these retreats in a very specific way. But anytime I would bring like, because I've worked on the brand side for 15 years here, like I would have all these ideas and it was like, boom, shut down, didn't listen my way. Yeah. It was a really interesting dynamic how that showed up. And he also, like with the Andrew Tate philosophies, believes very much that, well,
a woman is basically like second class.
Yeah.
And yeah. Ouch.
I know. So the work for me was like, in healing from that was like not judging myself. Again, I think that we make decisions in the moment, and it served me in a way, but then in retrospect, like I was disrespecting myself staying there that long. And there's so much more that, the child thing. Remember we talked about that?
You posted a video about this. We need to, all the Eastern European ladies who are going to be listening to this episode, I have an idea. Why don't we all gather together and we form like you know how Andrew Tate has a university? We'll have like a program to recover from
Proud Boys. So obviously I have a child. He knew I had a child.
I can't believe he said that he doesn't give enough about your daughter. You posted a video that went viral, I think, regarding what you're about, I think, to share, which I think I messaged you right away that it's total BS, but if you are comfortable sharing that would be great because it's...
Yeah. So initially, the first time it was said, we were at a table with friends for a friend's birthday. So there was like 8 of us at a table having dinner here. And there was a friend of ours next to me who was starting to hang out with a single mom. And he was interested in this single mom who has a baby. And he was like, one of her fears is that she's going to have difficulty finding a partner because she's a single mom. Mm-hmm. And the person I was seeing was like, this was the word. She's less desirable as a woman because she's a single mom. And the person who I'm seeing said, well, she's kind of right. And I think that's where the like 5% Russian in me showed up finally. And I was like, excuse me? And he was like, well, yeah, she's used goods. And this is, by the way, a friend of his that he's talking about. And I was like, excuse me? And he was like, well, yeah, no man would want to raise another man's child. And I was like, do you find me less desirable as a woman because I have a child? And it was like this really intense thing. And then he just didn't say anything, but everybody at the table just went quiet. It came up again when I was talking about future partnership. And again, he said, no man wants to raise another man's child. And anyone who does is a beta. Like he uses those words like alpha, beta. Yeah.
I really need a bucket. Honestly, Shanna, you should have warned me to to bring a little something here.
And actually like, nauseous. The used goods.
The used goods. Yeah.
And they also talk about the body count. Like if you look into Andrew Tate and like
the lingo
and these like Proud Boys, they basically prey on boys who've been heartbroken, boys who can't,
that's what concerns me,
who have no game or can't pick up women, and they teach them these tactics on how to manipulate. And I'm embarrassed to say that it worked on me. But again, those were the red flags. And then I posted about, this was after we separated. I did a little post. It was my only thing that's ever gone viral, which is sad to me because I feel like I put a really lot of heartfelt content out there. And this was the one where it was like a 3-second video. And I guess that's what the Instagram algorithm likes. But it basically said that a man recently told me that And then I wrote about it in the comments. And initially all my women like you and all my friends came out of the woodworks, like totally supporting me. Like this, you know, he clearly has a small, you know, all these things. And then it went viral, which means it goes out to the masses, which I've never, like, my content is from my people. And that's when like all the men came out and they were like,
all the angry men. And
all the angry men. He's right. You are used goods. You're a piece of trash. Why would anyone want to be with you if you failed at your first marriage, not knowing any details about why? Like, if you saw the comments that came through, and luckily, Christina, I do have tough skin. That's probably my Russian as well. That's in there, that little bit where like, I didn't let the words penetrate. Like I know that there is a man out there for me that will love me and my daughter and whatever I come with, because we're amazing humans. And I know who I am. I know how I show up in the world. I know how big my heart is. And I know how I serve and honor a partner. And there is someone out there.
Of course.
However, to wake up like constantly to all, like I was devastated to see that.
There's so many lunatics out there.
Yeah. And just like so many broken, like sad individuals that can just like prey on and attack. And I know you get it a lot on social media. That had never happened to me before. So it's a lot. It's
a lot to go through. Yeah. And anytime you work through it and then you're like, okay, I'm cool with whatever comes my way, whatever. And then you'll post a piece of content and then somebody will say something. They'll be like, ooh, that one just hit a little too hard, like something in there, you know, and then you have to work through it. It's this constant. Yeah. You have to, first of all, realize who those people are, and then it makes you feel a little bit better, because no man of honor, no man of God will ever say anything like that. No man, period, will say. I don't think Andrew Tate is a man. I think he's a broken, hurt boy. Yeah. Who unfortunately influences a lot of broken, hurt boys. That's my.
It's exactly.
I'm like, I don't give a fuck about what you do, where you live. Like, that, it doesn't matter to me. But you have influence and control. I have these things like flying from my sleeves. Yeah.
It's wild.
You're influencing so many broken men who are gonna become what you're teaching them to become. I saw this post. So he posted something on Twitter. Andrew Tate recently, and it was like, if you only have children with one woman, you are not a conqueror. Mm-hmm. And somebody responded and said, chill out, Alexander the Great, you sell online courses.
Yeah, he's all about spreading the seed. And like, so this person was very much of all those ideals. And like the way that he spoke about women, the way that he like, and then the narcissism comes in, where like because we were in the container we were and weren't partners, like we would talk about a lot of things, and like he just thought he was God's gift to the earth, and that every single woman was interested in him. And what like he would share with me all the time, which again, even if you're in like a lovership or something, like that's an interesting behavior to have to keep going and being like, oh, well, this happened today and that happened today. And like, it was a very much of a control thing. And then he ended up meeting, this is like the narcissistic, if you've learned about the cycle, which was so new to me, is like the love bombing and like, you're this, you're that. And then he met, they call it a new supply. He met someone he was interested in. And so then it was like discard, like trash, like you're a piece of trash. Don't speak to me again, energy. And then as soon as that new supply wasn't giving him the attention he wanted, he comes back, love bombs. It was such an interesting behavior. So what I was going to say, the last thing, and then we can move on, is on that post that I did, this person commented on it and said, oh no, you're such an amazing woman. There's definitely a man out there for you, or something. Mm-hmm.
You're what?
Mm-hmm. So I like when I saw him comment on it, like clearly knowing he's the one that said it. I was like, number one, he's either saving face because we have a lot of mutual friends and they would kind of probably figure out that he's the one that said it. Or the other woman that he was talking about, who again was a friend, would, you know, so he was being a man supporting me. I was like, it's either that or he's so narcissistic that he doesn't even remember that he said it. So I found out later through mutual friends, because they were with him when it was posted, and he was freaking out. So he was just trying to like save face so that everyone online would see how supportive he was and like pretend like he wasn't the one that said it. So that's, I mean, super manipulative, but that was a fun 10 months of my life. And that's it, you guys. That's all I've got, which is so sad. So how's dating as a single mom? It hasn't been great.
It's out there though. It's out. We need to figure out a way to cultivate an energy of knowing that you deserve the best, because that's what I wholeheartedly believe, that's what you'll attract. And by the way, to any man who thinks that way, explain why do I have so many examples of women who have had failed marriages, have had children with men whom they divorced, and they're super happy with their new husbands, and their husbands love their children. When you posted that video, when I saw it, I messaged you. I have a friend who lives in LA. She has 3 kids, and she met her current husband with 3 kids. And now they have another baby, and they have this beautiful family. He adores her, and he's a man. He's a real man. You could tell, you know? I have so many examples like that in my life.
So there were 2 things for me in processing all of this is I know that, and I believe it to my core.
Yeah.
So the work that I had to do on myself, and actually my friend Manuel, he's amazing. He's like this Colombian spiritual guru, but like it's the Russian. He's direct, and he tells
South
it to you
Americans
straight.
have very similar.
So he
attributes
says,
to my people.
You say that you love yourself, you say that you're confident, and that you know this, but what caused you to stay in that space
after all of
10 months after the red flags? And that's what I've been sitting with. And I just had a conversation with a friend recently where it came out. Like I said, I think that, not that I don't believe it, but I think there is this part of me, because of my life, the way that I'm living it, being here in Mexico and being a single mom, that I think I was holding on to just having like intimacy with someone, because now it's been 10 months. That's the reality, you know? And it's like, I think there was this part of me that it was like, am I ever going to find someone? Not because of the kid or the things, but really just my situation and being a single mom. And again, the way my life is, I'm like, how am I ever going to meet anyone? And that's a true fear.
Yeah. Why do you think you stayed for so long?
I think because of that, because I'm like, well, this is a really small town, by the way. So there's like not a lot of options.
Right.
And I think it was that fear of like, I'm going to hold on to this intimacy and this connection as long as I can, because once it goes away, like,
you don't know what's out there.
I don't know what's out there. I don't know when I'm going to feel that again. And, you know, I am a mother, but I am still a woman with needs and desires. And now, you know, we're 10 months down the road, and here I am. I did meet someone on a dating app, which is very strange. And we've actually been talking since July, but it's like, which is good. Instead of jumping right into like the physical. He ticks all the boxes, and we're still getting to know each other. But again, I'm here in Mexico, so it's like difficult to actually physically meet people. But it's definitely.
I was going to ask you what your opinion is on dating apps.
Oh, I hate it.
I met Alex when Tinder just started to become a thing. That tells you how long ago. No. When Tinder just started to pick up. I've never been on dating apps in my life. Neither has Alex. And I've always had not the highest opinions of them. That said, I know 2 couples personally who've met on dating apps. And
they're married and
they're married, they have kids. So it's like, you know what, whatever works for you.
I think it's just like anything else. It's like your intention behind going on it and like who you are. And I think whether it's in person or online is when you attract someone at the, like, it's a reflection of where you're at on your journey of self-love. Or so in those 2 strange relationships where I sacrificed myself for another human that was not giving me what I needed at all whatsoever, like that's for me to look at. So that it's like, so I think same with the dating apps, you can use it in a beautiful way, and people do meet. And so initially, for example, I didn't put that I had a child. Because again, I was like, this is going to be a barrier for a lot of men that might be interested in me. But then if they knew I had a kid, they wouldn't be. But that's, again, you're attracting someone on false information.
Right.
So the people I was attracting weren't the right people for me if I'm looking for long-term partnership and like a father figure for my daughter.
Of course.
So I changed my whole, like once I got back on, I changed my whole profile, because it's like, no, you need to know that I have a kid, and like that's going to be a barrier for a lot of people, because it's true.
It's so interesting to me, and I feel like that's a tougher thing for women for sure than it is for men.
I
Like, I don't
know.
think men experience that. When a guy has a child from another woman, like, I don't know if there's that. And again, I will reiterate this. I know so many women who had kids in their marriages and then they divorced and then they found the love of their lives, and it's great. But it does seem to me like this, especially with the rise of the Andrew Tate mentality online, they're just like pushing that. They're just shoving those beliefs down our throats, and it's not true.
It's not. And for a lot of people it is. And obviously with my post, like there's a lot of people that believe that way. And then right after that, I was at my friend's wedding last September, and I had a connection with a man, and it's like totally my type, like British accent, like all the things, because my ex was Australian. And we had this connection. He invited me down to his room that night, and I was like, no, like that's not who I am, but I'm interested in like in our connection, and let's explore that from a distance. He lives in the Dominican Republic. I'm in Mexico. And so we talked for a week on the phone, like hours. Like and I was like, I'm going to ask you all the questions that matter to me. He's like, go ahead, I'm an open book. And I asked like all the things, all the values, all the like anything that you could be on a side of, like everything. And he was so open and we were so aligned. And like, I can tell you, I haven't laughed so much in my entire life. Like that Aussie British sense of humor is just
they're very,
it's my thing. And I was just like, this could potentially be someone.
Yeah.
That would, but not just for like casual, like this could be someone based on all these conversations we had. And then a week into that, he called me and he was like, I just want to let you know that I've been like, I really love our connection. I think you're an incredible woman, an amazing mother. And I've been sitting with this, I've been meditating on it. And he was like, I'm really clear that I want to start a family with someone who doesn't already have a child. And so then I was like, okay. And so I'm like, right after the post and after all this stuff. And I was like, then I actually experienced it. And I could have taken that again and been like, oh, like in victim mode. And I was like, okay, not my person.
Yeah.
It's just not my person.
It's just not your person.
And like, it didn't feel good to receive that, but I'm like, that is true. And everyone has their beliefs. But for me, that is such a limiting belief to not even allow yourself to get to know me.
Yeah.
And you've met my daughter. Like anyone who has her in their lives is a lucky man. Let me tell you, she's extraordinary. So like to just come to something and not even give it a chance because of that belief, to me is so limited and so small-minded.
He just got scared.
And like, to me, it's not attractive. I'm like,
No.
oh, not attracted. So it like, yeah. But that's dating as a single mom.
This is such an enlightening episode. I listen, I think if there's one thing that you can take away from this episode, and that is that no parachute pants, no man buns. Hey, let me know in the comments below what you think of parachute pants and men buns.
That all being said, again, I know that there's someone out there.
There's someone out there for sure,
is.
for sure.
Yeah.
I know it for a fact. I know you, I know your daughter, and I think that it's it shows more about who they are.
Of course.
You know what I mean? When they say such things and when they limit themselves with these beliefs. And I know it for a fact. I know that you deserve someone who will give you everything and will not even question any of this stuff, who will love you and so let your daughter. Kid, I was like, names, are we mentioning names? Who will love your daughter and you. And I know it for a fact, because you're such a ray of sunshine.
Thank you.
And fuck the other guys.
I know.
Fuck you guys.
Good
Stop
learning,
listening
good
to
learning.
Andrew Tates of the world. They're not. There's so many other great examples. Like in my opinion, listen to Jordan Peterson. He's got a lot of really great input when it comes to relationships.
He actually does.
He's studied this stuff, and he's such a solid human being. You know what I mean?
Really respect him, actually.
Same. There's so many great examples out there of good men of God. Andrew Tate is not one of them. He just isn't.
No.
Maybe he sees this and stitches it, and he always yells on his videos. I've actually purposely avoided giving him any publicity, especially when he was becoming very famous, because I was like, I don't really think he deserves it. But then I found out how he got famous. I think I told you.
Yeah.
Apparently, so Ben Shapiro, you know Ben Shapiro? He did like a special on him on his show, like a 25-minute special that gives you all the information you could possibly need on Tate. And you could argue and say, well, where's the information given? Well, he has a whole team researching all of this stuff. And apparently in his university, one of the conditions is you have to repost his content on your page.
Oh, yes.
Anyways, ladies, we gotta raise our standards is what I told my was. Thank you, Shanna, so much for joining me today. It's always a pleasure to chat with you. And thank you to my wonderful listeners for tuning into this episode. I will see you next time.